259,200 seconds, 4,320 minutes, and 72 hours. That's how long it took this Miami rapper to commit another murder immediately after he had just beaten a double murder charge. To help you understand how insane this is, there are some online courses you cannot complete in that same space of time. And to make things clear for you, so who is Billy Adams? And why would anyone commit another murder 3 days after he was just acquitted of one? Billy Bennett Adams, also known by his stage name Ace NH, is a rapper that was born in Virginia and raised in Georgia. But in 2017, he moved to Tampa Bay, Florida. Billy's story is different from that of most rappers. He's one of the very few rappers out there who have a bachelor's degree. Billy graduated from the University of South Florida with a bachelor's degree in science and business management. Although Billy always wanted to join the military like his stepfather, who was a disabled veteran who Billy took care of. Some of his family members even state that Billy consistently tried to join the military during his time at university. During this period, Billy also worked at the sports shop called Finish Line Sports. But one thing Billy has in common with other rappers is that he was also a member of the Crips. It's not exactly clear the age at which he jumped off the porch, but the rapper was involved in some petty crimes that landed him in juvie. He was much younger. Billy was involved in some gang activities as a Crip member, although some sources also state that he was never fully entrenched in the Crips. It's unclear whether he had just been loosely affiliated, or it's also possible that he had just used his supposed legit lifestyle as a cover for other illegal activities he was part of in the streets. Some reports even say that Ace NH uses his image as a rapper as a front for a darker lifestyle. Billy officially started rapping in 2018 with the stage name Ace NH. Although he hasn't had much success, that hasn't stopped Billy from putting in the work. He was known for performing at open mic nights at 5-Star Dive Bar, Pegasus Lounge at the University of South Florida, and at the Tempe Riverwalk. He has so far released 3 albums, Paint the City, Most Hated, both of which were released in 2020, and his last album, Underground Icon, was released earlier this year. Billy has also released various EPs, but it would be a collaborative project that would lead to Billy's first serious offense. Ace NH featured on a body of work that was being fronted by his childhood friend Jamil Lanier, also known as Joe Million. The album was a collaborative project that featured various artists across the city of Florida. Billy and Jamil were supposed to record their verses on the 19th of February 2020. However, due to a booking problem, Ace NH and his childhood friend were informed that they would not be allowed to step into the booth. The duo was scheduled to use the studio at exactly 6 p.m., but it turned out that booking clashed with another artist. Therefore, they had to opt and search for another studio, and this little incident was what began the roller coaster that would not only ruin Billy Adams' career but also his life. Billy and Jamil used their various contacts to try to get to another studio and record their song. However, most studios were booked and unable to give them a slot because they were looking for an impromptu session. Billy was only able to get one person, his friend, Joseph Meeks. Joseph wasn't a full-time producer. Instead, he owned a studio as a side hustle because music engineering is his passion, while he also worked for a shop that dealt with fitting and repairing of car audio. Luckily for Ace NH and Jamil, Joseph had a free slot they could use. His studio wasn't exactly up to normal standard, as it was just a shed behind his parents' home, but it was good enough to do the job. Now this is where the controversies begin, as we begin to get conflicting stories about what happened at Joseph Meeks' studio. There are 2 versions of events, Joseph's and Billy's. According to Billy, he arrived at the 15,000 block of North 23rd Street in Lutz, Florida alone. Billy claimed that after he arrived, 2 other men, Trayvon Albury and Daniel Thompson, also turned up at the studio. But according to Joseph Meeks, this wasn't exactly how the evening at his studio began. Joseph stated that contrary to Billy's account, the 3 all men got to his studio in a car at the same time. The music engineer stated that he was familiar with Daniel Thompson, who was also known as Merc, because he lived in the same neighborhood, but he had never met or seen Trayvon Albury. Instead, he just assumed that Trayvon is just one of the homies that Billy and Daniel rolled with. At this point, Jamil Lanier had not even arrived at the studio, but Billy went ahead to spit his own bars and record his verse. It was after this that Jamil arrived with his girlfriend, who later stayed in the car while her boyfriend recorded his own part of the song. While Jamil was recording his own verse, Billy allegedly overheard Trayvon and Daniel's plan to rob Joseph, and Billy Adams certainly couldn't allow this this to happen. Jamil was only in the studio for around 20 minutes, after which he left because he and his girlfriend had errands to run. After Joseph had done his own part and the song was finished, all that was left to do was for him to email the song to Billy. Billy has to confirm he's received the before he leaves the studio, as this was Joseph's way of handling business. It was while Joseph was in the process of sending the email, that's when it happened. Those gunshots you just heard are the only things Joseph Meeks also heard as he sat frozen with fear in his chair while two dead bodies dropped on his side. Those sounds emanated from Billy Adams' pistol, and the bodies were Trayvon and Daniels. Now, you could interpret this event whichever way you want. You could say Billy responded quickly, he was proactive, he came to Joseph's rescue, or he put on his cape and saved the day. Any of this could be true, or maybe not. Was Billy truly saving his friend, or did he have his own agenda? This is the same story that Billy Adams would eventually tell a jury, and they had to answer the same questions you were just asked. But remember, Joseph still had to deal with the bodies in his studio, and the man who supposedly saved his life, Billy, had just fled the scene. Joseph's world had just turned upside down in a space of minutes, so he dialed 911 at around 11:46 p.m.
Hello, my name is Joseph Meeks.
No, we're here. This is an emergency. Where do we need to come to? Is this a house or an apartment?
This is a house, and I have a trailer, and I have a shed in the background, and then in the back of the trailer.
Okay, what's going on?
Two people have been shot. I was in the shed with 3 people. We were listening to beats, and then the one guy pulled out a gun and shot 2 people and said that they were trying to rob me or him or I don't know what the happened.
Billy Adams was eventually arrested later in the day by deputies of the Hillsborough County Sheriff and charged with 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder, 1 count of armed burglary of a structure, and was detained at Orient Road Jail. Billy pleaded self-defense and stated he was only protecting Joseph. However, Sheriff of the Hillsborough County, Chad Chronister, described the incident as a violent execution that is believed to be a result of a gang-related feud. Remember, Billy is a member of the Crips, but what makes this more interesting is that, according to the cops, one of the victims is also a member of the Crips. One witness allegedly came forward and stated that Trayvon Albury and Daniel Thompson were involved in a beef with some Crips over weapons and money, so Billy could have just been dealing with some ops for the gang. Billy fought these charges for almost 3 years, and he stuck to his story of self-defense. However, the manner in which the shooting happened defies the conditions of self-defense. Trayvon and Daniel were shot in the back of the head, execution style, which is definitely not what happened in a self-defense scenario. Billy defended himself and testified at his own trial, and his decision proves just how smart he is. In most situations like this, prosecutors find it difficult to win a case when the defendants decide to take the stand and tell his own story. The idea of the defendant looking into the eyes of the member of the jury just seems to always tip the scales in the defendant's favor.
Tough for prosecutors.
Especially in a case like this, where you have a defendant who takes the stand and he tells the story and he looks the jurors in the eyes in a convincing manner, explaining why he felt that it was necessary for him to act in self-defense and kill them before he could be killed.
He was not justified in his actions when he shot and killed Trayvon Albury and Daniel Thompson.
Another major factor that helped Billy's case is that the prosecutors couldn't provide a convincing motive for Billy's actions. All they put forward is that the evidence showed that Trayvon was shot in the back of the head. The prosecutors also provided text messages that showed that although Jamil Lanier did have errands to run, Billy also encouraged him to leave early. Text messages between both men showed that Billy told Jamil, "Pull off fast," after he recorded because he had some business. But despite all these evidences, Billy became a free man on the 27th of January 2023.
State of Florida versus Billy Adams III.
Billy Adams would hear the jury's verdict on murder charges. On count 1,
The defendant is not guilty.
on count 2,
The defendant is not guilty.
visible relief on Adams' face, but
After Billy was acquitted of the double murder charge, he got a second lease at life. Don't forget that he also has a bachelor's degree for science and business management, and this is also a degree that could help him earn $100,000 a year. But for Billy, rather than focus on any of these, it turns out he would rather devote his attention to something else. For Billy, it felt like the clock was ticking, not for him to do something in business management, but unfortunately, something more familiar. Billy Adams had killed again. It took 3 days after he was acquitted of the double murder charge for him to take the life of another person. If you remember vividly, he was acquitted of the death of Trayvon and Daniel on the 27th of January, and on the 30th of January, Billy invited his girlfriend, Elena Sims, to a party to celebrate his freedom. Elena and Billy met on the 10700 block of Pictorial Park Drive in the Easton Park area, 8 miles away from the location of the party. In the car was also Elena's son, who was only 18 months old. However, the next morning, Elena had passed away. Authorities found her body lying on the grass next to the road, a few feet away from her Ford EcoSport SUV, in which her son was napping. The neighbor who called the cops stated that she thought Elena was a drunk, unconscious woman lying on the grass. Elena was only 22 years old, and her 23rd birthday was exactly 14 days away. Her son was found unhurt in the back seat of the car, while his mother was shot dead. Investigators also revealed that Elena was 5 months pregnant. Detectives were able to track down her family, and they revealed that Elena was on her way to a party that was being thrown for Billy. Billy was arrested at his home on Oak Flower Avenue in Tampa. When the detective spoke to Billy for the first time, he stated that he hasn't spoken to Elena for several months. Billy claimed that he broke up with her because he felt she was being unfaithful and that the child she was carrying wasn't his. He was also claiming that on the day that Elena was killed, he was home all day. Still, investigations by the detectives revealed a different story. Surveillance footage from key areas connected to this incident showed that a Chevy Malibu that belonged to Billy's stepfather left the area where Billy lived on the same day Elena was shot. Cops eventually found the car, and they also found 2 bullets in the car that are similar to the one that Elena was shot with. When Billy was confronted with this evidence, well, he changed his story. Apparently, Billy wasn't indoors throughout the day Elena was killed. Instead, he went out with his friends to a joint in Tampa. Billy left home around 6:50 p.m. and returned home around 8:30 p.m. He even showed the cops a video of him having a good time at the supposed location where he hung out with his friends. Well, the video was proven to be a lie as well. Investigators proved that the video was taken on the 1st of February, a day after Elena's body was found. Police obtained a warrant to seize and go through his phone, and it was Billy's phone that nailed the charge against him. The detectives found messages on Billy's phone to an unknown person. Billy messages showed that he told the person that he no longer wanted Elena in his life, while the person told him to not resolve the issue with violence, but Billy never replied to that message. Perhaps he thought that because he beat a murder charge before, what's to say that he can't repeat it again? Billy was arrested for 2 counts of first-degree murder, for the murder of Elena and her unborn child. And if you thought Billy was out of stories to prove his innocence, well, think again. He had one more story under his sleeve, one you could say is tested and proven. Billy went back to his good old self-defense strategy, the same tactic to beat his murder charge. This time, Billy told the detectives that he did meet Elena. However, things got heated and she pulled a gun on him. Billy managed to get the gun from her and he shot her dead in, well, you guessed it, he shot her dead in self-defense. After hearing about him allegedly killing another person, one of the jurors who dealt with Billy's first case stated that he isn't surprised that he committed another murder. He stated that no one on the jury believed Billy's story, and they only found him not guilty because the prosecutors couldn't provide a good motive for why Billy killed Trayvon Albury and Daniel Thompson.